So hello and welcome to today's video where I want to talk about my astrophotography journey during these months. This has been a learning experience for me. Sweden is really dark in December, January, February, and you can't do a lot of photographing. So I decided to revisit an old hobby of mine, which is astrophotography. And the reason that I started photography in the first place, I started off with an analog camera and photographing the moon and such things when I was a kid. So it's kind of been a big red thread to me as astrophotography or astronomy. I do have a master's degree in physics and astronomy as well. So, I mean, I have been following it through my entire career or life. But yeah, so I never did photograph digitally. So I kind of had a lot of things to learn, and I looked at a lot of YouTube channels, like very good astrophotographers, and I made it a thing to photograph without any astrophotography gear. Instead, I will just use my regular camera gear, which is really good, by the way. It's this is like high-end stuff. Okay, maybe not the best, but it's still all my lenses are f2.8 or lower or wider, and I'm using the Canon R6 for these astrophotography sessions. Yeah, so this is like an entire video. I don't know if it's gonna be one or several series, but it's been a lot of photographing. And this is like a series of all my learnings and all everything that I did to learn and improve and optimize for astrophotography without any astrophotography gear. Completely untracked with high quality glass and camera, but I'm guessing that you could use these learnings with your gear as well, because you can just adapt to whatever gear you're having. But yeah, so let's get straight to it, starting off with the camera settings. Let's have a look at the settings for this particular lens that I use. So this lens is a 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 lens, and I have it in 200 millimeters, so 1.6 seconds is like a sweet spot for this lens. I could maybe push it up a bit more, but I chose not to. So 1.6 seconds, and I use the interval timer here. So I put it up to every 5 seconds in order to let the camera rest a while before taking the next shot. And 20 shots is basically what you have time to take before the object moves away too far in the frame. And then you're gonna have problems stacking it. But yeah, so in regards to the shaky part, I try to make that a little bit better by using the electronic shutter instead of the mechanical. But then it says that the maximum continuous shooting speed is approximately 20 shots per second, regardless of this setting. So that's why I can't go up to 1.6 seconds here in the exposure that I show you there. It's like half second, that's like the maximum. So I can't use an electronic shutter only. So I had to compromise here by going to the electronic first curtain instead. So I'm gonna have like a half electrical, half mechanical thing. And by doing so, I can go up to 1.6 seconds. So this has been my settings all the time at 200 millimeters, 1.6 seconds, f2.8, 4000 ISO. And I have been using the interval timer for 20 shots every 5 seconds. So I always do this. Let's go here. So 20 shots every 5 seconds. So it will take an exposure for 1.6 seconds, and then it's gonna rest for 3.4 seconds just to stop shaking, and then it's gonna take one more shot. So this has been like a trial and error kind of thing for me. I have tried a lot of different settings. This one has been the best for me. With that said, it's not optimal at all. I still feel that maybe 50% of all the images that I take are shaky or not usable, and I'll end up with like 500-600 usable frames to stack. But that is it for the settings. So let's continue on to the next part. So the camera settings are done. I have mounted my camera on a regular tripod with a ball head, so it kind of rotates in every direction. And I went out in the field starting photographing. So I started off with the Orion Nebula because it's really bright and it's just outside my balcony. So without any expectations of the results, I went out on my balcony. I could do it like 5 or 6 times, and every time I did it, I learned something new. I learned from my mistakes and I could improve on that, which is like a very important part of photography for me, to try and adapt and learn from your errors, or like for whatever you do in life, you try and you learn. So what I started off was with the settings. I found the sweet spot of ISO 4000, f2.8 and the 1.6 second exposure. I didn't get any star trails then. I realized that like 20-30 frames aren't enough to create a good photograph. I realized that I had to take several hundred frames to make a decent photograph. And then I realized that since I have a ball head tripod, the camera can move in every direction. The stars are moving like in one direction, and this one can move like however it wanted. So I had to try and stabilize it as much as I could in one axis and just move it in one axis, trying to keep the subject in the center of frame and not rotating it too much, because that's gonna mess up my stacking procedure, because the stacking software is not that good at stacking images that rotate. They're only good at stacking images that kind of move in one direction. So that's been some of my biggest struggles up until now. That and the shaking part of the photographs. I really haven't gotten past that shakiness of like 50% of the frames. And that's a bit annoying. I have tried so much. I had like shaky images like 70% of the time in the beginning, and then I realized that I could use the electronic first curtain, and that reduced the amount of shaky images. And then I think that the wind is responsible for a lot of the shaky images as well, because I am zoomed into 200 millimeters and I crop the image like 200% to frame the subject in a decent way. So I kind of get very, very up close, and the entire setup is really shaky at that point. And I don't have the best tripod either. I have a really lightweight tripod, not like this robust wooden tripod or whatever you use for astrophotography. Maybe not wooden, but yeah, you get the point. So it's been a compromise all the way, and it's been a lot of work for very little in the end, because I do get several hundred frames, and and I have to discard like the most of them, which is very sad. I mean, every time I look at the images doing my selections, I get a little bit sad when I see that there are so many frames that aren't good enough. Okay, so this has been my learnings. I made a thing out of doing some astrophotography without any specific astrophotography gear, just using my regular gear, which is good gear, but still regular gear that I don't track, I don't do anything specific. I don't have a specific tripod or mount or tracker or anything that can help me out, or filters or anything. I'm just using my regular camera gear, which means that you can also do this. And basically you need to just adapt your settings for the lens and cameras that you have. But just as me, you kind of need to do some trial and error, and don't go out and photograph one time only thinking that you're gonna get the best shot. Just do some practice runs first, like low bar practice runs like I did. I went out in the balcony like 4 nights whenever I had clear skies. In the last sessions I went out far in the forest. I drove for like 40 minutes just out of the city and straight into the woods where it was really dark, and I could use everything that I knew, and I felt more comfortable that I was gonna get more good shots than bad shots, or like 50-50 at least. I think the Bortle scale of where I took all of my good final photographs were around 4, Bortle 4. So not really dark, but dark enough. So the hardware is this one, the 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8 together with the Canon R6. Just a regular ball head tripod, really shaky one, and no filters, no tracker, nothing whatsoever. I just did the settings that I already showed you, and I went out and I just took as many photographs as I could, trying to keep the subject as aligned in every frame as I could. And then there's the post-processing part. So for future learnings, because I don't think that I will go out with this setup that I have right now and photograph anymore, it's just too much work. I feel that I have tried it and I have gotten the best out of my gear. I could of course go out and take more exposures, but I don't think that it's gonna improve the images significantly. So if I was going to go out again astrophotographing, I think at the very least I would use a new tripod and a star tracker. Now I have my eyes set on one star tracker. I don't remember the name exactly, but I think it's the Star Tracker, Star Adventurer or something. I don't remember. I'm just gonna link it down in the description. But it seems to be a good star tracker at a decent price. But yeah, I think that would be at the very least the minimum things that I would do. And then later on, I might remove I think it's an IR filter on my Canon 60D that I have. I could just remove that filter to get in more nebula, like to get more of that frequencies, the light frequency from the stars and the nebulas. And yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how much I'm gonna invest in astrophotography because that's not my main subject, although I do enjoy it during these dark winter nights here in Stockholm. All right, so that's it for this time. I will continue with this series on the next video. And as usual, if you like this content, do give it a like. If you have thoughts, suggestions, or anything else, do hit me up in the comment section. And not to miss the upcoming content, don't forget to subscribe for more of astrophotography and, of course, more photography-related content in general. And I'll see you next time. All right, bye now.